Hi, this is Dr. Joe Green, head pastor of Antioch Assembly Church located in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Also, the founder of the 2019 movement. And I want to share a couple of thoughts with you. One of the things that is very evident and very clear is that especially black people, and I'm talking to all people, but especially black people, we engage in what's known as identity politics. And identity politics, for those of you who may not understand, is one of the tools of the ruling elite, that they create these groups, and they convince these groups to kind of have a monolithic thought. It's based on identity. So you have women or minority groups like blacks or Hispanics, women, gays, now transgenders and white people. So what they do with identity politics is they convince certain groups of people, certain descriptive categories of people, that they should all think a particular way. And with that being said, not only do they think a particular way, but then they identify with a specific political party. And it's primarily the liberals that do that. So, and what I mean by that is, so with identity politics, they've convinced black people that you have to be Democrat and you have to be liberal. And which is why there's such a big, stir up with Kanye West, because Kanye West is doing something that's very unique as a public figure, an entertainer who has a lot of influence and has a lot of, been very successful for some time. He's going off what's known as the liberal plantation. So he's telling black people, one of the things he said, and I knew he was in big trouble when he made his public statement, that black people don't have to be Democrats. And that's just sent a shockwave through the system, especially the globalists. They're in panic mode, which is why they're trying to marginalize Kanye West. They're trying to say he's crazy. And people aren't even really listening to what he said, the specific, what he said. There was one thing that he said was brilliant. You know, he has a contract with Adidas that he produces his own shoe and his own clothing line. And he says, he's telling them, you should build a factory in West Chicago. And, with all the crime and murder and gang violence in Chicago, what a better way to help to offset those type of things and to change the community than to bring a factory in an area and provide jobs. But of course, not only is that the globalists or the internationalists, the ruling elite, they don't want to do that, which is why they outsource the jobs to other nations. But they also don't want black people to really succeed, because they gain a lot of power on pushing the agenda of racism. And so that's why the liberal left, the Democrats especially, they never solved the problem of racism, because as long as they continue to push the narrative of racism, it keeps black people controlled. And black people, like I said, this whole idea of identity politics, like we're black, we have to be Democrats, and it hasn't been working for us. I mean, we've been 50 years in this, since the 60s, we've really been heavily Democratic as black people, and our condition is getting worse and worse. Not only in the inner cities that are controlled by the Democrats, that our communities are in terrible shape. If you look at all the major cities that are predominantly black in those areas, you have a lot of drugs and crime and violence. You have low performing schools. You have high incarceration rates, and you have high unwed pregnancy rates. And I'm going to show you how that's all part of the globalist strategy to control and to manipulate a community. But of course, when you get into these discussions with liberals, especially black people who have been basically brainwashed by this mind control manipulation that the ruling elite has continued to push, they start to call people names. Like they call Kanye Uncle Tom or sellout or a coon, because there is no facts to offset what he's saying, so they have to resort to name calling. In regards to pro-life, if you start talking about pro-life, they'll say you're sexist or you're trying to tell women what to do with her body, because what happens is these liberal left agendas have actually no facts or no statistics or no logic to back up their position. So they have to convince you that these positions are absurd so that you don't listen to it. And again, I get into a lot of discussions, and nobody, most of the people that debate with me about the facts that I'm stating aren't using contradictory facts. They're just using their opinion, or they're repeating what they've been told by somebody else. This whole Trump is a racist thing, that's a narrative that the mainstream media has been pushing, but there's no actual evidence about it. And so every time President Trump passes a policy that actually could help minorities back off because they're being convinced that he's a racist. And so my thing is, challenge him. If you think he's a racist, then put him to the task. Say, okay, what are you going to do for our community? Sit down and talk with him. That's the common sense approach. But of course, like I said, the liberal left agenda is one that is devoid of common sense. So the biggest threat to black people, and I'm going to say this again, I said it in one of my last videos, the biggest threat to black people in America is not racism. The biggest threat to, I'm going to say that again, the biggest threat to black people in America is not racism, it's globalism. And it's very clear, and I'll tell you the strategy of the globalists, because they don't make any qualms about it. They don't hide their strategy. But unfortunately, most people don't read. They just sit and listen to mainstream media and allow mainstream media to dictate to them what's right and what's not. It's like mainstream media is basically saying to black people, if I want your opinion, I'll give it to you. And so they give us an opinion based on the globalist overall strategy. And my challenge always is the black people. Do you not understand that if you believe in white supremacy and you believe that the system of government is set up against people of color, do you not believe that the people that run CNN and MSNBC and all these other liberal outlets are part of white supremacy as well? Do you think that the people at CNN that's at the very top, the ones that you may or may not even know their names, do you think that they are in the hood with us and really care about black people? Or do you think for the most part, as is the case, that they are part of the global conspiracy? And I'm saying to you that they are part of the global conspiracy, which is why they are pushing the narrative of the ruling elite. There's a couple books, and I give you these resources for you to look up for yourself, because like I said, when I make bold, definitive statements, I don't do it based on opinion. I try to do it based on facts. And so this is one that you should read for yourself, The Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. It is the outline strategy of the New World Order based on the global elite and what they're trying to push. And it's clear they outline their strategy and how they are going to push for a new world order. And of course, they are the ones who are, and people will say the 1%ers, they're not even 1%ers. They're probably a half of 1% that are the ruling elite. And they are behind the scenes pushing the narrative. And most of us who are not part of the half of 1% are actually the victims to their strategies. Excuse me. So the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, a couple of things that come out of that is that they want they don't want a strong individual nations. So when you look at open borders actually is one of the strategies of the globalists. Now, and to push it a little bit further, because we know the liberal left are the ones who are primarily pushing for open borders and a weakened United States government. Open borders and illegal immigration flooding into the nation affects black males more than anybody else. That's statistically speaking. So isn't it interesting that blacks are liberals and Democrats, but they're actually supporting the policy like illegal immigration that hurts black people the most? And like I said, this is the Civil Rights Commission has deemed that these statistics are true, what I just stated to you. So it's not an opinion, it's a fact. So you have a president who says he's against globalists. He's made an open statement to the United Nations that he rejects globalism. But instead of black people understanding that globalism is our biggest threat, we actually are saying, look, the world is laughing at him. I had a couple of people share with me, the world is laughing at the president. But you got to realize that the United Nations is the governmental arm to push the New World Order. And they say that. It's not an opinion, it's a fact. And so if your enemy is laughing at President Trump, the enemy that's set up to destroy you, then you shouldn't get on the side of your enemy. It's just common sense. But because most people don't understand the real plot and the real threat to black people, we fall victim to that. The thing of it is, like I said, the globalists are the half of 1%ers are the ones that's pushing an agenda. And it's not just black and white thing or Hispanic or anything like that. It's for the rest of the 99.5% of the world population is going to be threatened by their strategies. But the problem is, and I'm going to make a bold statement here, the reason that it affects black people in America the most is because just like the New World Order, they said in their writings that the biggest threat to the New World Order, the one world governmental system, is strong families. And so they attack the family. And because in America, the black family is the weakest, we are the most susceptible to their plans and their schemes. Now, this is, and of course, facts matter. So I want you to hear facts. If you look at the per capita income in the United States, Asians are #1. So the Asian community has the highest per capita income in the United States, followed by the European Jews, and third is white Europeans. So if white supremacy is the actual thing that's affecting this nation, why are white people in the third position instead of the first position? It's no coincidence that the Asian community has the strongest nuclear family, which is why they prosper. That's why Asians aren't out there trying to push for an Asian president or an Asian governor. You very rarely hear them talking about that. But if you look at their families, it's the strongest. If you look at their economic structure in their community, it's the strongest. Again, followed by the European Jews. European Jews have a very strong family structure. They have a very high economic structure, which is why you don't have a lot of top-notch European Jews. I mean, you do have some, but I don't think we've ever had a president that was a European Jew, that was openly a European Jew, but yet their community is still the strongest. So the globalists, the internationalists, the New World Order people, they understand that the weaker the family is in the community, the easier it is to manipulate, to control, and to oppress a community, which is why in the 1960s, the war on welfare actually attacked the family structure, and it was targeted towards black people. And since then, our family structure has gotten weaker. In the 1960s and before that, we had one of the strongest family structures. But since then, we have now one of the weakest family structures, and that is intentional. That's not by chance. That is part of their plan. So, and again, this is all written in their documentation. And some people will debate with me at times and say, oh, there is no globalists. You're just making that up. There is no one world conspiracy. So if you understand the globalists and the international bankers, also known as the Illuminati, there was a family that really was the foundation, one of the foundational families of the Illuminati or the globalists, the New World Order. They were the Rothschild family. And so what has taken over the Rothschild family in America is the Rockefeller family. And most of you are probably familiar with the Rockefeller family. So the Rockefeller family is a part of the bloodline families for the globalists. And they are the ones that really push the agenda for the New World Order here in America. So they don't need to be in office per se. They don't need to be in the limelight, but behind the scenes, they're controlling things. They are the ones who helped to form the United Nations. And this is a book by David Rockefeller. His memoirs, it's written by him. And so one of the things I always think is ironic is when I say some of these things and people debate with me, I'm actually telling you what the people said themselves. The people that are part of this conspiracy openly admit these things and say these things, but yet people still argue with me about their position. They're defending the person who actually says this. This is what David Rockefeller said, and his chapter 27 is called Proud Internationalists. So I say globalists, he called them internationalists. This is a quote from his book. For more than a century, ideological extremists at either end of the political spectrum have seized upon a well-publicized incident such as my encounter with Castro to attack the Rockefeller family for the inordinate influence they claim we wield over American political and economic institutions. Some even believe we are part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States, characterizing my family and me as internationalists, and of conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure. That's the New World Order, the one world governmental system, one world, if you will. And that's the charge. This is what David Rockefeller said. If that's the charge, I stand guilty and am proud of it. So he's admitting here that that's their plan and their strategy. And they've been very, very effective at it. And primarily, they also give credit to the mainstream media because they own the mainstream media, because the mainstream media has helped them push their agenda along. So let me give you some specifics of their agenda as to how it affects people of color. And I'm going to show you how people of color have been so deceived, especially through identity politics and through mischaracterizations, that they are actually supporting the strategy that's meant to destroy them and to oppress them. And I say this all the time, and they argue with me, they debate with me. Nobody has any countering facts because, like I said, I go right to the source. I'm going right to the people themselves, and they have openly admitted what it is that they are trying to promote and to push. Now, of course, I already mentioned to you that they want weak borders. That's what they said. They said that the nuclear family or the natural family is the biggest enemy to their agenda, the New World Order agenda. So what the Rockefeller family did, not only did they start the United Nations, the Rockefeller family, they funded Joseph Mengele and the Nazis because the Nazi Party, which is part of the globalist occult New World Order, They were eugenicists, and eugenics comes from the word for good genes or well born. And so what they said, what their belief system is, because these ruling elite, the very high half of percenters of the world, they believe that they are literally gods on the earth, and that the rest of the 99.5% are pretty much just that we are basically, they call us human cattle. They call us feeble-minded. They call us many other words, and it's throughout their books that they talk about it. So anyway, you get the idea that they say that we are we're worth less than they are. And so they started the Nazi Party, which was based on eugenics, which is ethnic cleansing or racial cleansing. They said if we get rid of the basically inferior races, then we will have a super race and we will have a utopian society here on the earth. That's their ultimate goal of the New World Order. Genesis 3 talks about the deception that Lucifer gave to humanity. And so people that are proponents of the New World Order say that Lucifer is the head of the New World Order. That's what they say in their writings. Albert Pike wrote that. He said, without doubt, Lucifer is the god of the New World Order. And Albert Pike was one of the architects of the New World Order. So anyway, here's some of the strategies. We talked about that. After slavery was abolished and black people started to build up their communities, there was a lady by the name of Margaret Sanger. Margaret Sanger was funded by the Rockefeller Foundation, and she started what was called the American Eugenics League. And she said in her writings that we had to get rid of these human weeds because they're going to choke out the resources from the more favored races and the superior races. Now, they started something. You see it here. It was called the Negro Project to offset what was known as the Negro Dilemma. So the Negro Project that they started, she started it along with the gentleman who, I can't think of the name of the company. It'll come to me. But one of the Fortune 500 large companies, he was one of the founders. He also worked with Margaret Sanger and trying to come up with a strategy for the Negro Project. Called the Negro Project, and how to reduce the population of black people. And they wanted to do it in a way so that they didn't gain a lot of attention because, in the Jim Crow South and throughout history, black people were lynched and they were killed openly in public throughout different times. And so they said we have to come up with a better and more efficient strategy that doesn't have the same negative connotation as the lynchings and the other things. So she came up with what's called Planned Parenthood, and Planned Parenthood is created and funded initially by the Rockefeller family. It's called the Negro Project. And she talked about the human weeds, and she talked about the inferior races. She also said we have to get black pastors involved to promote our agenda, because if we get black pastors on board, then when some of the members get stirred up and want to fight against it, the black pastors will be the ones that help to silence these people. So with that being said, there is a document, and this is actually a document that called the Jaffe Memo, and I've shared this several times. You can go online and see it yourself. So this is actually part of the outline of the globalist strategy and on how they were going to push this in America. So I already stated to you that the Rockefeller family funded the Nazis in Germany, Joseph Mengele, which is why after World War II, they had this thing called Operation Paperclip. And they took a lot of the Nazi scientists and a lot of the Nazis, and they actually brought them to America, and they used them to help promote their New World Order agenda, because the globalists are bigger than America and Germany. But America right now is one of the greatest opposing forces that opposes the New World Order system. So anyway, the Jaffe Memo, it says the memorandum to Bernard Berelson, who was the president of the Population Council, found in activities relevant to the study of population policy for the U.S. And this is dated March the 11th, 1969, by Frederick S. Jaffe, who was the vice president of Planned Parenthood World Population. And again, it says examples of proposed measures to reduce U.S. fertility by universality or selectivity of impact. Now, like I said, the primary focus isn't just for all, it focuses on all the 99.5%ers, but one of the biggest targets was black people, the Negroes in America. And so most of these strategies are really focused on black people, which is why Planned Parenthood clinics, 80% of them are in or near poor black communities, inner cities. So here's a couple of the strategies here. One of them is to postpone or avoid marriage. alter the image of the ideal family. And so what they try to do is they try to reconstruct the family. So you have things like gay marriage, or you have the things like marginalizing marriage and not promoting marriage is a part of their strategy. Compulsory education for children. So they use the public school system as a part of, in order to educate people. So in the public school system, you have what's called the theory of evolution that was based on Charles Darwin's book, The Origin of the Species. The subtitle of that is the race to preserve the favored races in the quest for life. So it's based on race theory. Charles Darwin was also a New World Order person, a globalist, an elitist, if you will. And so he wrote, and they came up with race theory to promote the idea that certain races were inferior, because before the 18th century, people weren't separated by race. They were separated by nationality, by the country they came from, which is why up until the 1930s, Italians and Greeks and some other Southern European and other European nations, they weren't considered white. They were considered non-white. They weren't considered Negro, but they were considered non-white. It wasn't until the 1930s that they started to accept Italians and Irish and some other races that were from Europe as white people. So this whole idea of white supremacy, and the reason they did that was because once they started to accept those races, they began to make a clear, definite, distinction between white and black, which before it wasn't about white or black. But once they did that, it helped to promote their ideas without any pushback from other white races, or what you call white races. That was part of their strategy. They also, once they defined the races by black and white, it gave them the ability to manipulate the situation to push racism as one of their primary targets or primary tools in order to cause division in the country. So during the civil rights movement, the communists literally said, and even before that, but primarily during the civil rights movement, they funded a lot of the riots in the civil rights movement so that they can cause unrest in the nation, weaken the United States, so that they can come in and take over. And this is all documented. Again, this is not something I came up with. So compulsory education. So they use the public school system to teach certain things, which is why the public school now is promoting, they remove God and prayer out of the schools, because the New World Order also, they believe Lucifer is their God. They don't believe in the God of the Bible. And so people that are less religious or don't have a relationship with God, they're more easy to manipulate, because what they do is they go in and they corrupt the morals of society. And so if you have a Judeo-Christian system that's based on biblical principles, then you can't corrupt the society as easy, because they don't accept the various lifestyles, alternative lifestyles. Fertility control agents in the water supply. And again, this is right here on their document. This is a governmental document. Fertility control agents in the water supply. If you understand the effects of lead in water, when people have high levels of lead in their body, especially children, it causes them not to be, it reduces their intelligence, it causes hyperactivity, and it also causes behavioral problems. I'm going to say that again. High levels of lead in children causes reduced intelligence, hyperactivity, and also bad behaviors. So you think about that, right? And they say here that they're going to use fertility control agents or chemicals in the water supply. You understand places like Michigan, like Flint, Michigan, and other places, they found high levels of lead in the water. There was some government officials that actually have been charged because they knew that there were high levels of lead in the water, but they didn't do anything about it. And you understand states like Michigan and Flint and these inner cities are all run by Democrats, because, as I said, the liberal Democrats are pushing the globalist New World Order agenda. A couple of other points in this particular thing for the population control is tax married people more than single, substantial marriage tax. So if you think about the welfare system, I've had young couples that I've counseled, and they've gotten married after they've had kids and been together for a while. And one of the things that caused them to delay getting married is they said that immediately, if they were getting some type of public assistance, immediately if they got married, that they would lose their public assistance. And so financially it was more difficult for them to get married. This is all part of the population control, which what that does is that discourages marriage, discourages strong families, and encourages unwed pregnancies. Bonuses for delayed marriage. Let me see. Eliminate. They use the welfare system. Here's another part of it. Promoting homosexuality. Abortion and sterilization on demand. Promoting homosexuality. Let me see here. Encourage contraception. Make contraception truly available and accessible to all. So Planned Parenthood, even in the schools, a lot of times they're giving out birth control in the schools. And think about how interesting it is. And I know parents, and I'm a parent too, have had children in school. You can't send medicine to school with your kid. So you can't send pills. If you have a prescription that your child is taking, then you got to go through a whole bunch of loopholes to have them take that pill in school. But yet they can give out contraception in school, and they don't need, most of the schools, you don't need parental approval in order to give out. So they can give out contraceptions in school, but you can't give prescribed medicine or things that you want your child to have. I give my son supplements, vitamin supplements. He can't just he has to take them before he goes to school because he can't go to school and take these supplements. But anyway, I wanted to show you how most of these things that we see here are not coincidences. They're not just organic things that happen, but they are actually things that's promoted by the globalist New World Order system that is meant to reduce the population. And it primarily, like I said, it primarily targets people of color. And so what is the liberal platform? What's the Democratic platform? The platform of the Democrats is abortion rights, and some have even said no limit on abortion rights. They promote homosexuality and gay marriage. The inner cities that are run by the liberal Democrats are primarily they're really bad for black people and minorities. The welfare system is set up in a way to discourage marriage and encourage unwed pregnancies. And all these things are part of their plan and their strategy. So I say that to say that because of identity politics, we get caught up in things and we identify ourselves as Democrats. We identify ourselves as liberals. And because of that, we're actually helping to promote. Because let me say something to you. If you promote a platform, if a politician runs for office and he promotes a certain platform and says that's what he stands for, and you vote for him, then you are supporting that platform. So think about how ironic it is that part of the racist system to destroy black people was based on Planned Parenthood and abortion rights. So we have candidates that are openly running to support Planned Parenthood. The Democrats vote to give them a whole bunch of money, but black people support it, and it's created to destroy blacks. And so because of that, just since 1930, in America, tens of millions of black babies have been aborted through abortion and Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood wasn't set up for women's health. You can go to a health clinic. Planned Parenthood primarily, their number one moneymaker is the government and abortions, because you got to realize that they don't do pap smears or mammograms. They outsource those things. So it's not about women's health. It's actually a part of the population control. And again, this is not my opinion. It's right there in black and white. You can look it up for yourself. Socialism is the governmental system of the New World Order, and that's what they use to push. And so now you have in the Democratic Party people like Bernie Sanders that's pushing socialism. You have this lady from New York, Ocasio. I can't think of her whole name, but she actually is which you call a democratic socialist. So they believe that the socialist system should exist inside of a democracy. But you got to realize, again, that that's part of the overall strategy of the New World Order. Socialism is a government and economic tool used for the New World Order. The liberal Democrats are actually pushing it. And again, I've given you the documentation. You can look it up for yourself. This has been Dr. Joe Green, and just a couple of things I would encourage you, a couple of books, other resources. This is the one I wrote, The Ministry of Reconciliation, and I go into some of the basic foundational principles of restoring and reconnecting to God's plan and purpose for us. This one is called Why the Church Has Lost Its Power. Let's talk about the holy days and the biblical feast days. Also, the 2019 movement is the movement that we started. So I would encourage you to please look it up. The 2019movement.org is online. You can see it. My YouTube channel has a lot of videos where I teach and talk about these things. So please support the YouTube channel. Please support the movement. Please pass this information on, because this is this is a critical time that we're living in, and we're really in a very, very strategic time, and it's time for us, especially going into 2019, that I believe that God is going to restore, and he's going to build up, and he's really going to do something amazing. We just have to have the right mindset. Every movement starts with a mindset, right? So we first have to challenge and attack the mindset of the group of people in order to get people to move forward. And so I started this in 2016, and people said, what are you going to do with it? I said, the first part of that is education. We got to educate people. People have to be able to identify their real enemy and identify the strategies of that enemy so that we can not fall victim to it. Because until we wrap our mind around the true enemy that we have, and we stop getting deceived and manipulated by false flags, if you will, that the enemy tells you this is your enemy over here, until we get to that place, we're going to continue to be oppressed. We're going to continue to slide down the scale in America and around the world. But I know that God is going to do something amazing. You know, he has called us to rise up in this time, and we are the generation he's chosen for such a time as this. So be blessed. I love you. Peace and blessings to you. Shalom, shalom.